Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
It is Thursday, and all of our guests today are brought to you by our friends with the Vancouver Giants. The Giants home opener tomorrow night, Rick. Friday night. We had Barkley on the show yesterday. Against Seattle. Puck drop is at 7 p.m. Season tickets on sale for as low as $17 a game, and they include tickets to the first 2 home playoff games plus a free WHL Live subscription, or grab a flex pack. Available in 6 or 12 game packages for as low as $22 a game. Head to vancouvergiants.com/season tickets and don't miss out again. Seattle versus the Giants tomorrow at the Langley Event Center. Delaney's OK Tire and Langley inbox just before we get to John, Garth, and Ladner. If Seeloffs is still on the team, and he's in Group A, by the way, I don't care how long it takes Demko to come back. A lot of confidence in Seeloffs. We never mentioned him.
Yeah.
But I just mentioned he's in Group A on the ice at 10:30. Again, Thatcher Demko expected to talk around that same time, around 10:30, as we bring in NHL analyst John Shannon. John, thanks for doing this, sir. How are you?
I'm great, boys. How are you?
Lovely.
Very, very well. Is it true that Rogers is taking over Czech TV and they're now our bosses? Is that happening?
And nothing would surprise me. Check your inbox.
Email.
I do every 5 minutes. Hey, so for people who don't know, Rogers is buying out Bell's share of MLSE. Correct me if I've got any of this wrong. So what does this mean for the multiple sports teams under the MLSE umbrella, and the fans of those teams and employees as well?
Well, quite frankly, I don't think anybody knows, but at first blush, I would tell you I don't think it changes very much. Rogers, as a corporation, was phoned by Bell and said, listen, we'd like you to buy us out, but we want to be able to control the future of our content with the Maple Leafs and with the Raptors. They came to an agreement that it will still allow Bell Properties to have Maple Leaf regional and Raptor national rights for 20 years. If the market value is still there. And by market value, I think it's probably a price set by the National Hockey League and the NBA as well. So quite frankly, I don't think we'll notice much difference from the perspective of Keith Pelley being the president of MLSE, him running that business the way he sees fit, and then trying to figure out exactly whether the basketball team can improve as it goes through a bit of a rebuild, and the hockey team in Toronto, one of 7 in this country, continues to try to win the Stanley Cup.
What does it mean for the Argos, John?
Well, that's a good question. If you look at the landscape, Rogers was kind of forced into buying their portion of the Argos. Larry Tannenbaum wanted the Argos. Bell wanted the Argos, obviously because they were a big rights holder with TSN, with the CFL. So that might be the one question that long-term things have. This is not going to happen in the next 2 weeks. It's not going to happen in the next 2 months. This is going to take a year to finalize. And then there's probably going to be a decision, too, on whether Larry Tannenbaum remains part of the ownership group. He owns 25% now, and whether he will sell his share to Rogers as well.
So Rogers' big deal with the National Hockey League in Canada, it seems like yesterday. It expires in 2 years. With the latest news in mind, did we just assume that deal is going to get extended, John?
I don't know. That's a good question.
That's 2 good questions in a row, by the way.
I know.
Yeah.
Which is basically when anybody says that's a good question, they're trying to buy time.
Yeah.
Yes,
so
yes.
I guess my answer is, Don, you would assume that, but that doesn't stop Bell from trying to buy its way into a national package. That doesn't stop Amazon from buying directly from the league as opposed to buying from Rogers, as they did for the next 2 years on Monday Night Hockey. One of the and this is as much I think it's more of a business story than it is a sports story, simply because if you look at the penetration of Rogers in Western Canada, after the purchase of Shaw, how much do you see Bell in Manitoba? How much do you see Bell in Saskatchewan, Alberta, and British Columbia? And the answer is not very much. And so I think the people at Bell still need to get into the world of making sure they become and remain a national brand. Sure, they have the World Junior Championships, but that's a 2-week window. They have the CFL. That's a summer window. The question for me will be, from a Bell perspective, from a content perspective, what do they have on a national basis in the prime viewing months of winter in our country? And I think that if Bell is, trying to find a way to answer that question, that means they have to go to the table and compete for rights for the National Hockey League.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting for sure where those rights end up. We found out yesterday 4 Canuck games are going to be on Amazon Prime. Guys like Donnie and I, we don't like it. That was $9.99. You got to hook it up, John. It's ridiculous. Are we going to see more and more of this stuff? Because I don't like it.
What's the difference between paying Amazon $9.99 and Rogers and Bell $9.99 for your cable?
Okay, but I'm already paying for that. I didn't ask to pay for another. So already paid for it.
The answer is there's no difference. It's just you pay for Netflix, you pay for Amazon Prime for your movies, you pay for Acorn, you pay for BritBox. Get used to it. And the fact that the National Football League was ahead of the curve on all of this, with Amazon, with Peacock in the United States, it was just a matter of time that all the other leagues jump in on it. Apple TV has Major League Baseball. Look at the look at what the NBA has gone through in their situation with TNT. We're going to see Amazon basketball next year. Rick, get used to it. This is a fact of life. And in fact, I think that this is a natural progression of trying to get sports into people's houses when there are so many people, not of our age, but a much younger age, that are cord cutters and don't have cable TV at all. This is just, hey, this is a fact of life. This is a generational thing. We objected in the 70s and in the 80s when we had to pay for sports. Pay-per-view boxing. Remember pay-per-view boxing?
Hearns, Hagler.
We objected to that. We objected to paying for TSN. We objected.
Yeah, so remember those days.
This is just progression. That's all it is.
Yeah, you don't have to like it, though, John.
Yeah, I know, but you're in an industry that is actually going to prosper because of it. You guys, this is growing the sports business. It's a good thing. It's a good thing for all of us.
But, John, Rick thinks you have to buy some sort of special cable.
I already got I don't want more wires.
There's
too many wires. I want to sit on my couch. I want to turn the TV on, John, and that's it. One button.
Rick, I'm surprised you don't have to get up from the sofa and turn the little clicker on the page channels. Yeah. Channel 13. Come on. What's going on?
Old fashioned. Donnie and I are old fashioned. Well, you know what?
Donnie's not old, but Donnie's
he's the same way. He's worse than I am.
No. I'm progressive compared to Rick, not the rest of society. Yeah.
It's all relative. No extra stuff, John. Just give me the basics. Okay, listen. Bruins GM Don Sweeney yesterday blew a gasket. About misinformation on a podcast. My question to you is: going after a podcast is different than going after mainstream media, John, because the podcast doesn't have regulations of the CRTC. They swear on their podcast. They do all that stuff. But I find it interesting. How would the Bruins go after that podcast as opposed to going after radio, TV, newspapers? Because it's totally different.
Slowly, it is not becoming different because the business is moving that way. I mean, your show is a podcast. Mm-hmm. We're going to be able to download this show in a couple of hours on Apple and on Spotify. This is just the transmission of content is the only thing that's changing. You're right about the guys like Ryan Whitney and Paul Bissonnette can swear on their podcast, but I'll tell you what, in amongst all that stuff, there's some pretty valuable content. I mean, look at the issue. Look what happened last year at this time with Mike Babcock.
Yep.
Yeah. And so I'm not defending completely what Ryan and Paul do, because I'm not a Spit and Chicklets fan, because I don't like their approach at times. But I'll tell you what, they have a following, they have connections, and they have they have the ability to tell stories. And so in the end, it's not really as bad as you think. And good for Don Sweeney for standing up to it. I mean, I think that's a positive. There's too many times, and basically, you know what he's done? He's given them a lot bigger platform by doing it. But too many times, managers and coaches just turn the blind eye and let things ruminate, and they get out of hand even if they're not true. So for Sweeney to say it's incorrect, I think it's good on him. And I think that Ryan and Paul should be sending him a bottle of Pink Whitney, because they did him a favor and gave him some pretty good promotion.
All right, John, I know you're busy. You have to go to Blockbuster to get a pay-per-view box.
Well, hey, listen, I am going out to the Canadian Tire, and I'm going to get rabbit ears. I got to find a set of rabbit ears, and maybe I can get 4 channels. And Rick and I can, watch the CBC News at 11 o'clock at night.
Or just a giant, 100-yard, 100-foot satellite dish in your backyard, like my brother used to have.
I had one of those 12-footers.
Yeah.
I did. It was a long time ago now.
Yep. John, thanks for this. We'll talk to you next week.
Cheers, boys.
You bet.